Well, welcome everyone to today's presentation. This is the first webinar for the Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Palooza of 2024. And I'd first like to acknowledge the Recycle Smart team who brought you this presentation or these series of presentations. And that is a team consisting of my colleagues, Kathy Dunoff, Leah Kelleher, and Janice Paré, who you just heard from. My name is Ron Cochran, and I am a regional planner here at MassDEP, and I'm very honored to bring you this presentation today. So imagine a world where surplus food from our supermarkets, restaurants, and institutions doesn't end up in landfills, but instead fuels a sustainable cycle of nourishment and growth. In 2014, Massachusetts embarked on a journey to make this vision a reality by implementing the commercial food waste ban. This first of its kind law prohibits businesses and institutions that dispose of half a ton or more of food waste per week from sending these valuable resources to landfills or incinerators. But this wasn't just about regulation. It was the spark that ignited transformative ecosystem of food diversion efforts across the state. To help businesses comply with the food waste ban, MassDEP provides resources like Recycling Works in Massachusetts, which offers free technical assistance to businesses and institutions looking to implement better waste reduction strategies. Additionally, MassDEP provides grants to assist businesses, cities, and towns expand their food waste diversion efforts as well. The food waste ban has resulted in positive outcomes for Mass all around. We've seen a significant reduction in the volume of food waste entering our waste streams, and the ban has spurred the creation and expansion of food rescue organizations, composting facilities, and other related businesses, generating new jobs and fostering innovation in waste management. Today, we're going to focus on food rescue. This is the remarkable process where excess food is redirected to feed people in need rather than being trashed. Consider the simple head of broccoli. Instead of ending up in a dumpster behind the grocery store, that produce can now be made into a delicious side dish served at a local soup kitchen. And this is due to the coordinated efforts of businesses and food recovery organizations. Over the next hour, we'll dip into the fascinating journey of food recovery in Massachusetts and show how surplus food makes its way from the shelves of grocery stores to the plates of those who need it most. So, to help tell us this story, we've asked three leading figures in Massachusetts food rescue to share their work. So, let us get started. Hopefully, you saw what I did there. With 35 years at Wegmans and 8 years in his current role as sustainability manager, Chris Foote is a leader in waste reduction and recycling. He oversees all of Wegmans' waste reduction and recycling efforts, driving impactful initiatives that prioritize sustainability and community well-being. And under his leadership, Wegmans has donated over 19.6 million pounds of food annually, providing more than 38 million meals while significantly reduce landfill waste. Chris is an active member of the Monroe County Recycling Advisory Committee, the New York State Food Donation Working Group, and the FMI Sustainability Executive Committee, and collaborating on innovative solutions for food recovery and waste management. His commitment to environmental stewardship has helped increase the average store recycling rate from 62 to 76%. Through his work, Chris continues to champion sustainability as a triple win for the community, the environment, and his company. With that, I'd like to introduce Christopher Foote.
Thanks, Ron. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here with you today. So, Wegmans Food Market. So, we are a family-owned company established in 1916. Back then, we were known as the Rochester Fruit and Vegetable Company. The two Wegman brothers started the company back then, and we're now in our fourth generation with Colleen Wegman as our CEO. corporate headquarters is in Rochester, New York, and we currently operate 111 store locations with 3 more stores slated to open next year, the first of which will be our Lake Grove, Long Island store opening in February. We have 5 stores in what we call our New England division, or in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts. Okay, so real quick, our mission, our vision, and a little bit about our organic farm that we operate here in upstate New York. So we've always had a focus on trying to provide healthy food options for our customers and encouraging healthier eating habits and lifestyles. And we've extended that into our sustainability focus area as well, for a healthier, better planet, if you will. We focus on 3 main areas: eliminating or reducing waste to landfills, and that is my primary responsibility and focus area for the company. Reducing non-recyclable or single-use plastic packaging, and then reducing our carbon footprint through our operations. And we have a major focus right now on our trucking fleet, converting that from diesel-powered trucks to compressed natural gas. And then our organic farm is really what we look to be our gold standard around sustainable agriculture. And we want everything that we do on the farm to reflect our efforts to become a more sustainable company. So we do a lot of things there. It's a research and development farm primarily. The farming operation is about 10 acres, and 2 years ago we expanded that to an organic orchard as well. So again, it's an R&D. We learn and grow from what we do on the farm. The farm is at a 95% waste diversion, so there's only about 5% of all materials generated on the farm that still need to go to the landfill, and we're working on that last 5%. We have solar power on the farm, which provides about 70% of the farm's energy needs. All right, so our focus on food waste diversion is probably the biggest part of our zero waste efforts. And previously, we used the EPA food recovery hierarchy. So if anyone's familiar with that, that was kind of the upside down pyramid, which EPA has now recently changed to the food waste scale. So we follow the food waste, the EPA food waste scale. With preventing waste is kind of our highest priority. We do that through a variety of ways, primarily using what we call CAO, or computer assisted ordering, so that we order just the right amount of product. We don't over order, we don't under order. So utilizing technology to help us make sure that we have just the right amount of product in store, and thus not overproducing or over ordering and creating waste. Probably our biggest focus, though, is on donations for sure. So we emphasize that with our folks at the store level the most, that anything that is still considered still safe and still edible, that we make it the highest priority to get that into the hands of people in the community who really, truly need that. After that, we still want to keep all food waste out of the trash. So if there's a possibility to partner with an animal livestock farmer, we'll do that. We have 40+ stores now that have relationships with farmers. And then after that, it's compost or anaerobic biodigestion to keep the last bit of food out of the landfill. In Massachusetts, with our 5 stores, we have 21 different donation organizations that we're partnered with. Spoonful is a partner at all 5 of our store locations, and we focus on primarily 5 categories of donations. So just a little background of where we were, where we finished up last year, and where we are year to date so far this year.
Yeah, just go ahead and go to the next slide, Ron. We'll think most people are interested in the process, so we'll wrap things up here. Well, thanks everybody. Welcome back to Wegmans. Appreciate your patronage. Sorry for the technical difficulties there and the sound. It's always fun. Kathy was emailing me. I said I would be shocked if I was on a call and there wasn't at least somebody with some kind of a technical difficulty. So it turned out it was me this time. So anyways, let's jump back into it. So our donation process at Wegmans. So that starts early in the morning when our folks first come into the store, and their first responsibility, or one of the first ones, is going to be to go around their departments, and they are going to check dates, right? So we try to keep everything properly rotated within our display cases and displays. So our folks will check those dates. They'll also check the quality of the product. So example, if it's a bulk display in produce, apples, something along those lines, bananas, etc. They're going to take a look at that, and they have basically a standard or that they look at, right? So if the bananas are getting really spotty, if the apples are bruised, if there's a moldy strawberry in a package, they're going to pull that off the shelf. All right, and then they're going to make a judgment. Can this product still be donated, or should we put it into our compost process or send it to anaerobic digestion? So they make the determination that, hey, the date is still good. Today being the 19th, let's say we pull product this morning on the 19th, and it's dated the 19th. So we will donate that product that day before our donation partners come in. We'll have it all ready for them. Or our policy is we will donate that product one day past the date. Best by, use by, sell by date, or whatever it might be on the package. So we'll go one day past the date. It's not really a food safety issue at all. Our standards are when we pull that product, it's as good as the day we put it out on the shelf. So it's really not a quality issue or a food safety issue. But if we let it go obviously too far past the date, then the quality is going to start to degrade. So our folks box it up. They'll put it, if it's a refrigerated product, they'll put it on what we call a U-cart or a runner, as you can see pictured in here, and they'll keep it in a cold area, usually either our produce or our dairy coolers, until our donation partners arrive. And then we'll go grab the product for them. We'll bring it down to our back dock area. So it's a loading dock area in the back of the store, and our store receivers kind of oversee. They're the gatekeepers of that area. They're responsible for it. They have the primary relationship with the donation organizations. We'll weigh the product up for them, or the organizations will weigh it. We track and record all those weights by who got what. So whatever spoonful comes on Monday and they get product, we're going to weigh that up and we'll record the weight that spoonful received, and we'll also track and record any other organizations that come that day. Non-refrigerated product, we hold it down in the receiving area. Obviously, it doesn't need to be in a cooler, so we'll hold it, and again, it's only there for maybe a couple hours at most, and then the organizations show up. As I mentioned before, we track and weigh all the donations and keep that for our internal records as well. One thing I wanted to mention is around the MassDEP, or the Massachusetts law around food waste diversion, that went into place, and Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 2014. We started donating product long before that. That starts in the late 60s or early 1970s, when we were only located in Rochester, New York. We've since have branched out from there, obviously. But there was a startup food bank here in Rochester called FoodLink, and we partnered with them when they first started up in the early 1970s. And we've expanded and have a donation program at all of our stores since then. The other piece of this, with the food waste diversion or inedible food scraps, we started doing that in 2012. So that was 2 years before Massachusetts implemented the law. And when Massachusetts did start to propose this law, or went before the state legislature, we wrote in support of that law. So we're actually in support of the food waste diversion law. We've since Massachusetts, other stores have followed their lead. New York, New Jersey, Maryland are three other states that we operate in, and we all supported the passage of a food waste diversion law in those states as well. So I guess, Ron, I'll wrap it up here, and then I'll wait for the Q&A session, see if there's any questions for me.
Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, well, Spoonfuls keeps good food from going to waste. Through food recovery and distribution, education, and advocacy, we work to address the health, environmental, and economic impact that wasted food has on the planet. As Senior Manager of Community Relations, Liz manages Spoonful's community education and engagement activities, coordinates Spoonful's advocacy work, and supports Spoonful's strategic plan to broaden their impact across Massachusetts and beyond. She has done food systems and food security work her entire career, including most recently with the City of Boston Office of Food Access, now Food Justice, and the Food is Medicine Mass Coalition. Please welcome Liz Miller from Spoonfuls.
Thanks so much, Ron, and great to hear from you, Chris. Again, as Ron said, my name is Liz Miller. I'm the Senior Community Relations Manager at Spoonfuls, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about Spoonfuls and how we operate, the issues that are underpinning our work, and I'll walk you through what happens to the food we recover, including from partners like Wegmans, and where it goes on the other end to partners like Bread of Life in Malden, who you will hear from soon. So this slide here is our why. This is why we're doing what we're doing at Spoonfuls. So 38% of available food in the United States goes unsold or uneaten every year, and about 90% of that is going directly to waste. So it's a huge amount of waste, more than 1/3, $428 billion worth of food going to waste. And meanwhile, here in Massachusetts, 1 in 6 households is experiencing food insecurity, so they don't know where their next meal is coming from. That's nearly 20% of the population in the state. So those are two really sizable issues sitting side by side and really very contradictory. People with not enough food and so much food going to waste. And then to add on to that, there's a pretty sizable climate impact to the issue of wasted food. So it's the #1 material in landfills. It's around 20% of what you'll find in landfills in Massachusetts. And there are similar rates across the country. And 80% of that is perishable food. So some of the most nutrient dense, hardest to come by food for households facing food insecurity. And meanwhile, as that food is sitting in that landfill, rotting, it's emitting methane, which is a really powerful greenhouse gas. So it's a pretty significant climate contributor, climate change contributor. Next slide, please. So this is how we work at Spoonfuls. We operate with a direct distribution model. Different organizations doing food recovery do things differently, or maybe there's some similarities to what we do at Spoonfuls, but this is how we work at Spoonfuls. So we partner with hundreds of vendor partners, retail brand partners, a lot of the ones that you all are familiar with, including Wegmans, Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, Roach Brothers, a lot of the big brands in Massachusetts, Big Y. And so we recover from them still good unsold food. Again, we're working primarily with grocery stores. We do work with a couple produce wholesalers and a couple farms. And I'll share here that Wegmans is a very consistent partner of ours. I've had conversations with folks on Chris's team to talk about the impact of their work in the communities where they're operating and where we're recovering from them. And their commitment to sustainability means that there's a real value proposition to work with Spoonfuls to recover that perfectly good food. So after we recover the food from our vendor and retail partners, it goes onto our trucks. We operate 9 routes across the state in a fleet of refrigerated vehicles, and our team is a fully professional ServSafe certified team. So as opposed to working with volunteers, we've got a fully professional team who are out on the road 5 days a week across the 4 regions in Massachusetts where we operate. And then they bring the food directly to our nonprofit partners. So we work with about 200 nonprofit partners across the state. Anyone who's serving food to their constituency whether it's a food pantry or a meal program or a senior center after school program, you name it, they could be a partner of ours. And our nonprofit partners are reaching 55,000 people each week. Next slide, please. And so on this next slide, you'll see these are the regions where we operate. Our biggest footprint is in Greater Boston, where we've got 5 routes operating. We've got 2 in the Metro West, 1 in Worcester County, and 1 out in Hampton County Center.
Isn't turning off, but yeah, sure. Thank you.
Next slide, please. In 2023, we recovered 4.7 million pounds of food, and we're on track to distribute even more this year. We're on track to distribute over 5 million this year. About 70% of what we recover is perishable stuff. So again, that nutrient-dense product that's typically more expensive and harder to come by for folks facing food insecurity. So fruit, vegetables, meat, dairy. And I'll share here that the 5 million pounds that we're on track to recover this year, that's 5 million pounds of food that our nonprofit partners don't have to buy or spend money on. We distribute to our nonprofit partners for free. So that means they can spend that money elsewhere within their programs. And it's also 5 million pounds that our retail partners don't have to have hauled away. So, Ron mentioned the organics waste ban here in Massachusetts, and by donating to Spoonfuls, our vendor partners are staying in compliance with that ban, but also they're saving money because to have trash or compost hauled away costs money, whereas Spoonfuls doesn't charge a fee to recover from our partners. Next slide, please. We're a 501c3, so we rely entirely on philanthropic support. You can see here about half of that comes from grants. We've received a couple state grants, but largely they're from like private foundations. And we bring in a decent chunk from our fundraising events, individual giving as well, and some corporate donors. Next slide. And for every dollar that we recover, that means our team is able to distribute a pound of food. So there's a real clear connection for those who are donating and supporting our work to understanding, where that money is going and the impact it can have. Next slide. So, Spoonfuls operates within Massachusetts, but we really are excited by the prospect of food recovery to scale and what that means for those issues I talked about: wasted food, food insecurity, and the climate emergency, and kind of the intersection of those. So I love this slide because it really demonstrates what the potential there is. These 10 apples represent all of the edible food that goes unsold or uneaten in the US each year. And Spoonfuls estimates that it would take recovering just 40% of that food that's gone to waste to feed everybody in the United States. So that really gives you a sense of the scale of wasted food, as well as the potential impact that food recovery has. And so again, we're focused in Massachusetts at Spoonfuls, but there's a lot of potential for food recovery broadly. Next slide. So just a couple things that set us apart. I mentioned we're not the only folks doing food recovery, and different organizations operate differently. We often get confused with a food bank. We are not a food bank. In fact, we don't bank anything. We don't have a physical facility. I mentioned we use refrigerated vehicles, and that's it. So the food goes onto the truck and is off the truck with a partner, or even, with the people the partner serves by the end of the day. We don't have a physical facility where we're like storing food or holding food for any reason. And again, we really pride ourselves on the safety and reliability in our work. We don't work with volunteers. We love volunteers. They make the world go round for sure, but Spoonfuls really wants to make sure that we can be consistent and reliable with our partners. So that's why we've got that ServSafe certified team. And then I mentioned previously, our focus is on fresh. So, if we have more being offered to us by a vendor than we can fit on the truck, we're going to leave behind the canned goods or the bread and prioritize putting the apples or the lettuce on the truck. Next slide. So a question we get asked a lot is, why is food available to recover? And there are many reasons. These are the big ones that we see at Spoonfuls. So surplus is a common one. Like a store will order food throughout the week, and maybe they've put in a produce order on Monday and a produce order on Tuesday. And when the stuff arrives from the second order, the stuff from the first order is still on the shelf, still perfectly good, but they want to put the freshest product out and they don't have space to hold it all. So we'll get the stuff that's still perfectly good, but just not the newest product. Or they're just culling and there's kind of a few items left as they're clearing off the shelves, and those get tossed in a box and we get those. So surplus is a big one. Imperfect, but still good is another big one. So, you can see these bananas. For a lot of people, that's like the perfect banana to eat or turn into banana bread or a smoothie in a couple days. But if you can think about bananas on the shelf in the store, they're typically green. So, these kinds of bananas are pulled to put the green ones out. A lot of the product that we recover is nearing the date on its label, and I am very happy to shout from the rooftops any opportunity I get that, we at Spoonfuls and many others in this field encourage everyone to really rethink date labels. There's not federal regulation around date labels, and so we've got this very inconsistent patchwork of date label laws in states where they do exist. And so that means we've got if you start noticing now, you'll see use by, best by, enjoy by, freeze by, open by, just all these different things. And what do they mean? The truth is that a lot of them are arbitrarily set. And in most cases, date labels relate to peak freshness. So what the manufacturer says is the peak moment to eat that food. But the truth is that food is typically still high quality and delicious days, and depending on the product, even weeks or months beyond that date. It very rarely has anything to do with safety. And so we will recover food near its date, and we have guidance on sort of, the date that we'll consider for milk is different from the date we'll consider for a canned product, but we will consider food at or near its date because we know that food is still good and safe to eat. A lot of stuff that we recover is made fresh daily and the day is done. So they're marketing it as made fresh daily, so they're not going to sell it the next day. So we get it, things like sandwiches and fruit cups. And then factory mistakes is another one. So I'm not sure if you can see or notice the error here, but that peanut butter jar, the label is upside down. The peanut butter is perfect. The jar is intact. There's nothing wrong with that product except an upside down label. That store was not going to put that food out. Next slide, please. So just a couple ways to support the work that we're doing at Spoonfuls and get involved. I mentioned we're, entirely reliant on philanthropic donations. So we welcome donations to support our work. Again, $1 means 1 pound of food being recovered. And I really encourage you to learn more about us. So you can follow us online. Our social handles are at Spoonfuls Food Recovery, or you can find us at spoonfuls.org. We talk about our advocacy priorities on there. We share some of our favorite rescues of the week. It's pretty neat inside scoop on how to keep abreast of what we're doing at Spoonfuls. And I'm seeing Christine's question here, and I appreciate that question, Christine. If you're interested to receive food from Spoonfuls, you can find there's an inquiry form on our website for that, spoonfuls.org. There's a spot for if you're interested to receive food or to donate food, you can fill out that form. And then, we have fantastic fundraising events each year, and we're happy to support you if you're interested to set up like a third-party fundraiser on our behalf. We welcome that. And I think, Ron, my contact info might be on the next slide. Yeah, so that's me. And if you want to reach out to me, I welcome any inquiries, any phone calls or emails. Yeah, thank you. And Ron, I see questions coming in, but do you want me to wait till the end and we can get on those
Yes,
later?
please. We're going to hold off to the end for our questions, but those are great questions. We want to keep encouraging them. So now we've seen this food go from the grocery store onto that box truck with Spoonfuls. So now it goes to its final, and like I said, the most delicious part of the journey, and that is where it's going to end up on someone's plate. So with that said, we're going to introduce our next speaker, and that's Gabriella Snyder-Stelmack. She's the executive director of the Bread of Life, which is a nonprofit, non-denominational, faith-based food security organization based in Malden. Gabriella has worked with the Bread of Life since 1988 in a variety of roles. Under her leadership, the Bread of Life's Under One Roof project sought to create a new central home for all of the Bread of Life grocery distribution and dining programs, and this was completed recently and is now where Gabby and her team calls home. The Bread of Life's mission is to feed the body and nurture the soul. They strive to feed the hungry, the homeless, the needy, and the isolated, to offer spiritual nurture, support, and hospitality, to promote greater peace and justice by addressing broader issues of hunger, poverty, and need, and to conduct the work in a spirit of respect and nonviolence. With that, I would like to introduce Gabriella Snyder-Stelmack.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today and share Bread of Life's work. Uh, Bread of Life was founded in 1980 and incorporated as a tax-exempt 501c3 organization in 1992. We serve residents of Malden and Everett. Those are our principal communities, and 11 surrounding communities. We provide 1.25 million pounds of free food every year for economically struggling and disadvantaged families through multiple programs. Due to the volume of food we distribute, we're ranked as a strategic partner among Greater Boston Food Bank's member agencies. Bread of Life is able to distribute a huge amount of food at low cost, averaging $1 per meal, by leveraging the work of hundreds of volunteers and dozens of partner organizations. These include faith communities, businesses, civic organizations, schools, government, and social service agencies. We'll focus today on 3 programs that are impacted by food recovery efforts, and I'll talk about them later: our motel meals, congregate dining, and Food Mart. But I also want to mention some of our other programs that we offer, which are our mobile market, grocery delivery to senior citizens and disabled residents, nutrition backpacks for Everett Public School students, and our food access project to overcome barriers for marginalized communities. Next slide. Although 95% of the food we distribute comes from the Greater Boston Food Bank, they cannot provide all the types and quantities of food we need, so we rely on recovered food as well. As you've learned from today's presentation, food recovery can be a fascinating journey, and we're the last stop on the line. Next slide. Our motel shelter delivery program. Bread of Life has operated a program to deliver meals and groceries to homeless families and individuals in motel shelters at various times over the last 20 years. In August 2023, with the Commonwealth's migrant family housing crisis, we expanded our services from 2 to 4 motels. And for 2 of these motels, we provide recovered food along with the Greater Boston Food Bank foods. Motels typically provide a dorm-sized refrigerator and a microwave. No other cooking is allowed. We actually inquired about this, but dishwashing is restricted because there is only a bathroom sink available in the room, and food waste would clog the drains. Next slide. Due to that limited cooking and cleanup in the motel rooms, we tailor what we send, giving priority to ready-made foods and easily prepared grocery items. And recovered foods are the main source for these. Typical foods we send are restaurant-style meals, side dishes like mashed potatoes or roasted vegetables, salads, stews. We also send sandwiches, wraps, bakery items, sliced breads, and cold cuts, milk and yogurt. You see some products there. We do receive regularly from Wegmans and Trader Joe's, BJ's, and thanks in great part to Spoonfuls. Next slide. Since 1992, Bread of Life has operated an evening congregate dining program for anyone in need on a walk-in basis, including families and individuals who are homeless, senior citizens, disabled residents, and low-wage working people. We serve currently 50 to 100 meals per night, Tuesday through Friday. Rescued foods we rely on include entrees and vegetable sides, bakery products like breads, rolls, and desserts. You can see those on the plates there. Dairy products such as milk, yogurt, and cheese, fresh fruit and vegetables, salad fixings, and fresh and frozen meats and seafood. Next slide. That slide on the left shows, the photo on the left shows our preparation during the pandemic and in a previous kitchen that we used to lease. So during the pandemic, all our programs went to grab and go, and we packaged all the meals for our dining program. Since moving into our new facility on August 1st and having finally our own dining hall and kitchen, we once more have become a congregate meal site. This provides not only good nutrition, but the socialization and relationship building that's so important to the mental and emotional health of the people that we serve. Next slide. Our new facility also made it possible for Bread of Life to provide client choice shopping for the first time in our history. Our Malden Food Mart is open every Wednesday and Friday. It enables pantry members to shop as if they were in a little supermarket. They get their shopping cart. They can choose their desired meat, seafood, protein, produce, bakery products, dairy products, and non-perishable foods. We provide 800 to 1,000 households per month with a grocery order of approximately 40 pounds of food, and that's just through this food mart. Rescued foods, you can see some of them that we rely on and include the prepared meals, salads, vegetable sides, prepped fruit, the whole fresh vegetables and fruit, refrigerated soups, bakery products like bread, rolls, and desserts, dairy products like milk, yogurt, sour cream, cheese, cheese spreads, fresh and frozen meats, seafood, tofu, beverages, grains, and dry goods like pasta and beans. I think you've seen a picture there, some hot peppers, lemons, you got butternut squash. Next slide. And you see on the right-hand side there some of the prepared foods that the volunteers are bringing out of the refrigerators. The freezers just behind them. Malden and Everett, the main communities we serve, are in the top 10 of the most diverse cities in the Commonwealth. Over 80% of the people we serve identify as people of color or those whose first language is not English, with the dominant groups being of Chinese, Haitian, or Central or South American descent. This diversity of clients necessitates a diversity of culturally appropriate foods. Offering this variety nourishes our customers as well as preserves the dignity of having food preferences met. We also offer gluten-free foods. Recovered foods help us meet all these needs. Next slide. So lastly, Bread of Life is a volunteer-driven organization, as you can see, community supported. Everything we do depends on those two things. So I want to welcome you to donate, volunteer, or join an event. Our next big event is our annual Thanksgiving Day dinner at Malden High School that will provide 1,500 meals through a congregate meal and delivery to senior citizens. So please check out our website, breadoflifemalden.org, to get involved. Or you can use the QR code to see our donation page for food and financial donations. And thank you for the opportunity to share Bread of Life's work with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Chris, all of you for presenting this really interesting journey. And I hope those on a call today learned something, got something out of it, and then most importantly, are inspired to act in a positive way to assist with this food recovery ecosystem in whatever way that you feel appropriate.
There was a question for Wegmans. Question for Megan. Have you considered an ugly or imperfect produce section and sell at reduced costs like some stores have done in Europe?
Hi, it's Chris. Hi, yeah, we've looked at that, and we've been approached by some companies that you may be familiar with out there. That's kind of their model is to take imperfect fruit and other items and sell them at a discount. We've kind of shied away from that. Our outlook is, if we're pulling it off the shelf, so we're no longer going to sell it at full retail price. Our mindset is we don't want people to pay anything for it, right? So we want to max out donations to the fullest extent that we can. So as I said earlier, if we determine, and our folks are trained on this to, if they determine that it's still safe and still edible, right? So the package is still intact, or if it's a piece of fruit or vegetable, we have what we call the 75% rule. So if you look at it and you say, well, yeah, it has a bruise or a blemish, or the bananas are getting a little spotty, but if I had this at home, I would still eat it. Or it's, that bruise on the apple, I can just cut that off or eat around it, right? 75% or more of that fruit or vegetable is still going to be good. Then our folks are strongly encouraged to donate that product. So we just don't feel right about discounting or marking down product to a lower retail and then still having people paying for it. We have very high standards, especially around produce. And if we don't feel it's at our peak standards, then we're going to pull it and we're going to give that product away as long as it's still safe and still edible.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation as to why. I think there's always like the question of, it seems so simple. Why don't we just do it this way? And there's always a reason, and there's always a worker that has to be there to do that way, which kind of segues me into Liz. I think you got a lot of questions about where you guys service, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to answer that sort of broadly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I responded to the question about Cape Cod. We're not in Cape Cod yet, and I'm looking at Shelley Lee's question about do we work in the North Shore, Beverly area? We go up as far north as like parts of Stoneham, I think is sort of like our furthest point north. But we are actively exploring expanding to 2 new geographies in the next year or so. Right now, we're looking in Bristol and Plymouth counties. That's just where we've received a lot of inquiries over the years, and we know that there's really significant need there. I think it's fair to say there's significant need in all corners of Massachusetts, though. So part of our strategic plan is really expanding to as many new areas as we can. It's a logistically heavy work to do that, so we sort of have to take it one route at a time. And I did also want to just respond to Shelley's question about, food pantries or sort of like folks in the field being willing to kind of take anything that's coming at them. And I definitely appreciate that sentiment. There's so much good food that's going to waste. I think the person who responded to Shelley's question, Phoebe, about sort of the limitations that food pantries experience is definitely one that we're very mindful of Spoonfuls. It's why we don't put everything on our truck. I think, a perfect example is a lot of our partners are working with folks with a lot of dietary restrictions. They're needing to have, reduced sugar, reduced sodium. They can't eat too much kind of like starchy stuff that's going to impact their like glycemic index. And so for those folks, like it doesn't make sense for us to put all of the muffins or the bread on the truck, because we know that the partners that we're about to see after we load up the truck that day are simply going to say, we cannot take that. It's not good for our clients. you know, to your point, I think there are people out there that could and would use that food though. And there are other ways that Spoonfuls isn't doing, but that food like that can be used. There's upcycling, kind of turning perfectly good food into something else, like a meal or like a component or an ingredient that can then be used more effectively somewhere else. Spoonfuls isn't in that business right now, but yeah, it is I agree with the primary question though. I mean, it's a frustrating situation that there's still food that can't be used. But I think it's really just a matter of what folks can handle and know their clients will eat.
Thank you, Liz. I wanted to make somebody had asked about a law about wasting food. So Ron had alluded to this earlier. So in 2014, the MassDEP enacted a waste ban on any food establishment that is generating more than a ton of food waste a week. In 2022, it was lowered down to half a ton a week. So there is a mandate that food not be wasted. There's different ways, paths that food can take. It doesn't necessarily all have to be rescued, but maybe it's sent to anaerobic digestion, or maybe it's sent to compost. But they can't put it in the trash without a waiver. So MassDEP would know if there was a truck full of food that needed to find an outlet. We would have to give them the yes or no on whether it could go to a landfill or incinerator. So I just want you guys to know that we do care very deeply about this, and we do our best to make sure that that food is getting used for a higher purpose. I just want to read one more quote from one of our listeners. I think it's very sweet to sort of close up on. She said, "I've been interested in food rescue for decades and am so gratified by all that is happening now compared to many years ago. This is more than good progress. Such hardworking people are managing all of these food rescue organizations and food pantries. Of course, more needs to be done. If you want to help, volunteer at one of these organizations or your local food pantry. I just want to say thank you. I could not agree more."
Thank you. That was a wonderful, wonderful parting thought there. So again, I think we're going to take this time. It's now 1 o'clock. We're going to be respectful of everyone's time. Again, we do encourage you to attend the remaining sessions of Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Palooza 2024. We hope to see you at those as well. So once again, thank you to our participants. Thank you to Liz, Chris, and Gabby. And all my colleagues here at MassDEP. We thank you again and wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.